These are the first 4 problems from the textbook for Chapter 5, Section 7, using similar figures. And we're going to end up using proportions to solve these problems. So let's take a look at the first one. Here we are looking to find the unknown length, and the unknown length is a in this case. So what I want to do is I want to write a proportion. Now proportions, you want the same side and the same location of fraction when you're coming up with your proportions and your ratios. So let's take a look at what a is. A is RQ. So when I look at RQ are these two letters right here, Q and R. That means that I'm going to set up a proportion that starts with RQ, and then I'm going to look at the corresponding side for the next part of this fraction here. So RQ goes on top. That's where I'll put it. So that means I'm going to end up using YZ. So YZ, this side right here, corresponds to RQ. So I'm going to put YZ right here. So I can go ahead and set up that fraction. So RQ is A, and YZ is 9. Alright, so we've got one fraction set up. Let's try setting up the next. Now, this next one could be any number. It doesn't really matter what you end up using. I'm going to decide to use this one, RP. So let's take a look at RP. RP are these two letters, P and R. That means in this similar figure here, X and Y, or X and Z, I'm sorry, X and Z are similar to P and R. So this little symbol right here represents similar. And if we know that two figures are similar because they tell us, the order in which they write these should be similar. That means the point X corresponds to P, the point Y corresponds to Q, the point Z corresponds to R. So that's why I am using the same order here. So I used PR, or RP, however you want to write it. I'll write down RP. So RP corresponds to ZX. So ZX. So RP is 20. And then ZX, let's take a look at that one. ZX is this one right here, 8. So I'm going to use 8 right there. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to cross multiply, but I'm going to probably try to make the problem a little bit easier on myself. See, before I get into cross multiplying, because I have the two ratios equal to each other, that's what we typically do, you can reduce the fraction. You can't cross cancel, but you can reduce the fraction here. So I'm going to make this problem easier on myself. I'm going to take out a 4. I see 4 goes into these numbers. And if you take out the smaller numbers, like 4 to start with, the division at the end will be a lot easier. So I'll go ahead and do that work. Now I have a new fraction. I still have that A, so fix that. It should be an A over 9. That's the first fraction. But this fraction is going to become 5 over 2. See, now it's a whole lot easier to solve because I have smaller numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply now. 5 times by 9. So I write that down, 5 times by 9 equals, and then I do A times by 2. So 2A is what that is. And so I can go ahead and multiply out these numbers. 5 and 9 make 45 equals 2A. Well, all I have to do now is do a division problem. So divide by 2, and we'll have our answer. So up here, I'm going to write down 2 into 45. Well, 2 goes into 4 2 times evenly, so that made 0. Then bring down the 5, and 2 goes into 5 2 times, so that makes 4. Do some subtraction. Now we could change it to a mixed number here or a decimal. Either way, I'll change it to a decimal. So add a decimal point, bring it up, bring the 0 down, do 2 into 10, goes 5 times, evenly. So there we have it. We're done. So it's going to be A equals 22.5. Now don't forget the units, centimeters. Real important to make sure we show what units we're in. So there's our answer. So it's the same thing on this problem. So again, they tell us in the problem, above there, they showed that the triangle, and again, I'll just rewrite what they had here, X, Y, and Z is similar to triangle PQR. So when they show that, that tells us which sides correspond. So let's take a look at the unknown length. We want to know this one right here, xz. We want to know what y is there. So I'm going to start with xz, and then if I look at x and z, that's these two right here. That means that p and r, see how those are in the same location as x and z? P and r, that is the corresponding side. So p, r. So I would write that as y over 35. Now where did I get the y? Well, that's the unknown. That's xz, the length of xz there. Where did I get the 35? Well, PR is 35 right there. Now let's write another ratio. So since I started with this triangle, that means I need to write and use one of their sides. So I'm going to use xy, this one right there, xy. And that length is 48. So I can go ahead and write that in my other fraction here, 48. Now I need to find the corresponding side to xy. So let's take a look at this. xy are these two letters here. So that means PQ. It kind of goes with what we think here. These seem to be about the same size. So PQ right here. So PQ corresponds to xy. Well, PQ is 30. So that's the number I'm going to use there, 30. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. You see, you could just go and cross multiply right now, but you'd have double-digit multiplication. Let's try to make the numbers smaller if at all possible. So looking at these two numbers, 48 and 30, I see that 6 can go into them. That's why it's real important to learn those multiplication tables. And if you struggle at all, get yourself some flashcards and know those multiplication tables, because that really helps you out. So we go ahead and do that division. We still have the y over 35 equals, and then I do that division and I get 8. Down below, 30 divided by 6 makes 5. See, now I've got a much easier problem to deal with. So I'm going to go ahead and use that cross multiplying. So again, when you're doing that reducing, you can only reduce the fraction itself. You cannot cross cancel. You have to only reduce the fraction because it's a proportion, not a multiplication problem of fractions. So we go ahead and do that work. We've got 5y. So I did y times 5 is 5y equals. Now off to the side, I got to do 8 times by 35. So up top, I'm going to do that work. It gives me 40. 3 and 8 makes 24, plus 4 makes 28. So 280. And so from there, I do some division. And when I do that, off to the side, up top, maybe I'll go ahead and do that division. 5 into 280. 5 goes into 28 5 times, with 3 left over. So I bring down the 0. 5 into 30 goes 6 times. So there it is, 56. Y equals 56. But don't just write 56. Look at the units. Meters. We're in meters. M stands for meters. Well, a couple more problems here. Let's take a look at the next one. Now the next two problems don't have that similar sign right here. They're just showing you two things. And they say that the gardens at right are similar. So they're telling us that they're similar. So we have to just, they don't give us the different vertices that tell us which points are corresponding. So we just have to look at it and kind of figure it out for ourselves. And so I see that 42 and this question mark correspond. So let's use those. I'm going to call the question mark X. They're asking how wide is the garden. Well, I'm going to call that X. That's this distance here. So I'm going to write X over 42. So since I started with X, that means I need to start with this number right here, 36. So 36 over 54. And so again, as long as you're consistent, you'll get these proportions right. If I start with this one, that means I need to start with this one. Now there's a few different ways you can set them up, but this is just the way I'm going to do it, this problem. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce the fraction. Look at this 36. Look at the 54. Is there a common factor? Well, I see 6 goes into those numbers. So let's go ahead and do that reducing. We'll rewrite that X over 42. And then here we get 6, and here we get 9. So I could even reduce that more. I guess I didn't see the larger number, so let's go ahead and do some more reducing. So let's go ahead and take out a 3. Maybe make this even easier on ourselves. So divide by 3, divide by 3. So now we've got a new proportion I can go ahead and write. Still have x over 42, that hasn't changed, but now it's 2 over 3. And so I can go ahead and do my cross multiplying now. 2 times 42, so 2 times by 42, and I set that equal to x times by 3, so x times by 3. Well, 2 times 42 gives me 84, and this all equals 3x. X times 3, same thing as 3x. So I go ahead and do that division, and 3 goes into 84. Well, off to the side I need to do that work. So 3 goes into 8. We have 2 times, makes 2 left over. 3 goes into 24 8 times. So there it is. X equals 28, and that's in feet this time. Well, let's take a look at the last problem here. Here we have 2 triangles. See this triangle right here? And then we have a bigger one up top here. See, this is the tree right here. And it goes all the way across and then back this way. So we've got these 2 triangles, and they've set them up. It says a palm tree casts a shadow. It's 130 inches long. A surfboard casts a shadow that's only 105. It tells us how long the surfboard is. It's 84 inches. So we're going to set up a proportion. Let's go ahead and set this one up. H, we'll start with that one. And then the next one I'm going to do is I'm going to use this one triangle's side. So H and 130. Let's do it this way. There's a few different ways to set these up. This is one way you can do it. H to 130. That's the distance all the way across. That's the tree and its shadow. Since I'm starting with the tree, that means I need to write its shadow. So again, I'm doing tree to shadow. So I'm doing the shadow on the bottom of the fraction each time. So surfboard here, we know it's 84. Shadow, 105. And so now we're ready to solve. So when I do this, again, I'm going to do the same thing. I don't want to multiply 130 by 84. I'm going to take out a factor. I see 3 goes into it. Now there might be more, but that's what I see. The rule for 3 is if you add the digits. 8 plus 4 is 12. 3 goes into 12. Same thing here. 1 plus 0 plus 5 is 6. 3 goes into 6. When I do that reducing, this is what I get. H over 130, that doesn't change, but now it ends up being 28 is what I get when I divide 3 into 84. And I end up with a 35 when I divide 3 into 105. Well, I see another number. I can reduce that more. Do you see that other number you can divide by? Well, hopefully you saw 7. 7 goes in there. Again, this is why knowing factors, knowing your multiplication tables is so important. It makes problems a whole lot easier. 28 divided by 7 makes 4. 35 divided by 7 makes 5. See, now we've made the problem a whole lot easier. And so what we're going to do is just cross multiply. Multiply the 4 times 130 and the 5 times h. So up to the top I'll write 5h equals, and then I got 4 times by 130. So I do that multiplication, and I end up with a 520 when I do 4 times 130. And then when I divide by 5, we'll come up with our answer. So h ends up equaling, well, 5 goes into 5 one time, so let's do that off to the side here. 5 into 520 goes in one time with nothing left over. Bring down the 2. Well, 5 goes into 2 0 times. 0, so that means I have a 2 left over. Got to bring down the 0 here. 5 does go into 24 times. So there it is. 104 inches is the units there. So those are some of the typical problems that you'll end up seeing on tonight's homework. Good luck.